It's my real pleasure to follow up that profoundly interesting lunch talk with a talk that's going to focus on the metrics part of the case that he was making. And the explicit argument, of course, of the speaker was you can't just generate all these messages and spit them out into the environment. You have to be looking at what's effective. And we happen to have two specialists in looking at what's effective, particularly with regard to web communication. My colleague Dana Chinn, who's a lecturer in the journalism side at the Annenberg House and teaches the web metrics courses here, and Ron Wang, who you previously met as the wrangler, whose job is to assemble you for the room. And so she was especially interested in assembling you so she could force you to hear her talk, or I mean give you an opportunity to hear her talk. So I'm delighted to turn it over to Dana.
Thank you, Tom. I have the enviable position of coming after lunch, and especially after what looks to be a very exciting talk. So I'm new to it, as Tom mentioned, and I teach web analytics here for journalism majors, which means that I also teach math. Because most communication majors and journalism majors went into communication, went into journalism, because they didn't have to deal with numbers. But we're in a different world now, where numbers are the coin of the realm, and so we are taking a much more focused approach on really giving our students the tools they need to succeed in this very different communication world. And in fact, UC Annenberg's done a lot of work here, not just in the School of Journalism, but also on the comm side, with Patty's work, Ron's work, and others here, Francois Barr, that you heard before. We're all involved in this whole issue of how does media have impact has really been so important, because how do you make the best investment into the channels that you can? I mean, in the past, we just sort of threw money out there and hoped that it worked, to hope that it stuck kind of thing, but it's become a real issue, especially for nonprofit foundations. And so we just recently got a grant from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to actually look at this in depth. We have a 3-year grant where we're going to look at what in media actually works. Because it's one thing to say we're going to push a lot of content out there. It's another thing to actually say what worked, among who, and why. Because if we know why, what worked and what didn't work, then we can fix it. If we fix it, we can have more impact. So you're going to be seeing a lot of things coming out of Annenberg really getting at this question of how do we make communication more effective. And the interest that nonprofits such as the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation have, the Knight Foundation, whatever, they are all foundations that fund journalism. They fund actual coverage, because in the aim that they're trying to do, which is similar to perhaps some of the real reform efforts, they're trying to improve the status of life for children, they're trying to improve health, global health, things like that. How can they be more effective? What they need to do in order to fund? So they're willing to make an investment in communication in order to advance their aims. But they're not willing to do it, because that's what Bill, Bill is Bill, and he's a business guy. He's a numbers guy. So when it comes to return on investment, the media is not exempt from that. You need to have a return on investment on your communication. And it needs to be quantifiable, and it needs to be used in your decision making. So that's what analytics are all about there. I mean, there's a lot of talk about analytics, but what does it really mean to you and what you're trying to do? It has to be part of the overall goals we've been talking about for the last week. And so what I'll go over, and Ron and I will cover, is what are those metrics? In other words, we've talked a lot about just sort of like doing stuff kind of thing, but how do you really know whether or not you're successful? So that's why instead of titling my talk, sort of web analytics, I think, which is the very sort of boring title of anything I could talk to, what is web analytics? This is really about how do you define success. Really simple. How do you know whether or not your website is successful? Just because you produced it doesn't mean that it's working.
What's the Norman Linda Center?
Well, the Norman Linda Center is a center of USC Annenberg that studies the effect of communication and entertainment being defined very broadly, kind of thing. In other words, they look at things like, that documentary Food Inc. thing. Well, they looked at whether or not that actually changed attitudes and behavior of people, what food they bought, and what they ate. Kind of thing. So they're looking at the effect of entertainment on people's lives. So this is all related to a lot of the work that they're doing, and so we're now expanding it specifically to say how can we improve media? How can we really measure the impact so that we can make it better? Because there always has to be that ultimate goal, that ultimate outcome. That what do you really want to accomplish in it? And how does every single activity that you do contribute to that success? And how do you measure that? So that's what I'll be going through, and Ron will follow up on social media. But first, we talk about defining success. Start with the first out, how has success been defined in the media before? Things like Nielsen ratings, newspaper circulation, impressions when it came to billboards, whatever. This is mass media, really familiar. And mass media still works, but mass media is working differently than it used to. For example, radio. Radio used to be something you had in your living room, in your bedroom. Your 8 o'clock radios would have you. We're no longer listening to radio there, but radio's not dead. Radio actually has an incredible, unique purpose in the car, especially here in Los Angeles, where people commute. So now radio's most impactful place is in the car. So it's still a mass media, but it's just that the situation's different. TV. TV is still a mass media, but now with cable and video on demand and things like that, it's a different type of experience. I happen to think that TV will always be sort of a mass media that will live because it's so passive. Digital channels they ask you to do something. It actually takes work. You type in something and search in whatever. TV, you can just let it sort of sit back and let it sort of come at you. And I'm sorry, that kind of media has that will never die kind of thing. There's always going to be media that people want to just sort of wash over them kind of thing. So who's in trouble, like where they haven't had a defined purpose or defined type of purpose. Newspapers, yellow pages, all things to all people. And so the ratings, that we're looking at, mass media ratings kind of thing, ratings in the past have been very passive. Nielsen, ABC, Arbitron, all that media was to do was sort of sit back, very passively get the numbers. Nielsen said our numbers are this. ABC said our numbers are this. And that's basically this mass media business model, which is all things to all people. You take all your content, all your advertising, and you spew it across to everybody, all in the hope that you get to that one person that you really want to get to, whoever that may be. But what the mass media business model is all about is that everyone is equally important. When I was looking at Los Angeles Times, it didn't matter whether or not a subscriber was in San Diego, which is about 3 hours from here, I think, or in San Francisco. It was 1.1 million circulation. It didn't matter that a lot of them didn't actually live in Los Angeles. All that matters is that we could charge advertisers, for 1.1 million circulation. Everyone was equally important. But you know where I'm getting to, right? You can say like, all right, so now what kind of thing? You've heard this over and over again. We're in a world now where we can capture everything that can be typed, clicked, and touched. And actually, this is a new slide because a couple years ago, touch was not even part of this. So now, not only can we get stuff that people will type and click, but now we can get touch.
And soon you'll have to add C with the Google...
Oh, God. Don't even have a handle on the metrics we already have. So, yes, you're right. Maybe I will add that, and you will come back and you'll see, she has added C. Who knows? I mean, what else is going to feel? I don't know. So we're in this type, click, touch thing. When we talk about big data, that's what we're talking about. Every single time you touch that keyboard, that slider thing on the phone, we're capturing it. It's capturing this big data. And what that means is when we look back at what we really know about those mass media audiences is that demographics, age, income, race, ethnicity, whatever, they are just stereotypes. Because you know who I do, but not all women are alike, not all older people are alike, not all 18-year-olds are alike. So if you look at traditional research methods in which we ask, are you in the age group 18 to 24? It's a very typical advertising target. Well, I don't need to tell my students that there's a big difference between 18 and 24. So why are you targeting the same message to people who are 18 and who are 24? And actually, I have students in my class who say, excuse me, but there's as big as 18 to 20 kind of thing. So, I mean, you have to really sort of think about, are these demographics from the old metrics relevant today in a touch, type flip world kind of thing? The answer is no. Kind of thing. It's not a rhetorical question. The answer is flatly no.
But surely, I mean, people's brains haven't changed that much, and you do need to think. And I'm working on elections. Okay, so first-time voters for me are very important. 18-year-olds, very important.
Yeah.
Even though in Iraq there are many, many different ones. But I have to think in terms of 18 to 24-year-olds because I have to use that frame and then say, okay, within that frame there is this and this and this. So if you're saying, well, none of this matters anymore, then what you get is, in a sense, absolute relativity, and you won't be able to move.
What you're looking at is that demographics are just the starting point and not the be-all and end-all. And you're not just targeting 18-year-olds, you're targeting 18-year-olds who are a citizen of the country and who have the attitude that they're actually interested to vote. So in other words, you have to go a lot deeper.
Right.
You can't just stop the way that a lot of advertisers made decisions before. We're going to buy Lifetime because that is the channel for women.
Right.
You have to, Lifetime is not really the channel for women. It's the channel for women who are between 30 and 40 and who have children, and watch those really weird Lifetime. You probably don't watch Lifetime movies, but they're all about sort of wives who leave their husbands and kill them and things like that kind of thing. It's a particular type of women. It's not 50% of women who live in the U.S. So you have to go beyond the stereotypes of a woman, and really understand what are the attitudes and behaviors. And do these stereotypes really, is that really part of your audience mix anymore? When you're defining who you're trying to have impact on, you've got to go beyond demographics and get much more into their actual behaviors and attitudes. And this is what's resulted from big data. Audience behavior. These are all the services that have sprung up that are processing and munching and crunching this big data, also that a marketer, and we are all marketers, we all want to market information to people so that they use it. What are all these things, search and whatever, advertising, all to get rid of the consumers? Of course, the question that we have is then what is the role of news organizations in this? Knowing that there are all these ways that marketers can get to consumers, then this is why the news industry is in such trouble. Because there's a lot more ways that people can get to people directly and more precisely than they have before. And that's why the whole news organizations are in such turmoil. Because we've got to know more about our audience. And not just twice a year or whatever. We've got to know about our audience every single second of what they're doing in order to be able to sustain more business model. So there are two types of analytics data that we're talking about, behavioral research and attitudinal. In the past, attitudinal, you all know about attitudinal surveys and things like that. That's the only research that we used to have. Let's do a survey. I think. So we used to say, sort of like, how often have you read the Los Angeles Times? And they would say, oh, I don't know, kind of recall research kind of thing. It still has its place, but guess what? We now have behavioral research. And attitudinal research is very expensive. It's time-consuming kind of thing. So now, since we have big data, since we have all this stuff that we didn't have before, what's happening now is if we get the crap out of this data, we can get so much out of this data, we're only doing the attitudinal research for questions that are not answered by behavioral data. So, and we can be more targeted in who we survey, and we can develop much. We need to ask why. For example, if someone is not coming to your site, you need to go out there and ask why. And you're not going to get that from looking at your behavioral research. So if your goal for your website or any digital channel is we want to get more people, more women who are going to vote who are 18 or whatever kind of thing, or not, you're not going to get that out of looking at the site, your traffic from your digital channel. You're going to have to do that some research. But the first thing is say, oh, we need to research what we want to do. Go to your web data. Do not start with a survey. You're just wasting time. It probably will be, frankly, useless. It's much better to start out with really tapping into the wealth of data that's available, on the web. So that's what we're going through today. Just sort of like, what is sort of the what are the key metrics that you're looking for in the web, and how do you frame them into decisions that you need to make for what you need to do? So this is your typical behavioral data that you see, especially from news organizations. You've all seen these in news stories, and perhaps you've seen them in your own reports that flop on your desk that totally put you to sleep. Our site had 5 million unique visitors, average time spent set, page views, likes on Facebook, followers. It's like, yeah. Well, in the metrics world, that is what's known as so what data. What do you do with this stuff? What does it mean? Is it giving you any direction on what you should do? What does it mean that we should get more likes? It's so what? If you take my class, you can get a lot of points. You probably get an A if you just keep saying so what. So what? If you get a report when you're back in your offices, and you get a report from somebody, and your first reaction is, so what? Go with it. It's a good reaction. It means you don't have the data that you need. It means you don't have the data that you can actually use. God did really, you have a question in your mind about what action to take. You're going to use data to do it, then you need the right data. And if the data doesn't speak to you and say, oh my gosh, I've got to do this. I've got to add more resources to do this, more kind of whatever. If that data doesn't tell you what you need to know, then get rid of it. Do not even waste your time. There was an email, there was a report coming out of the Washington Post a couple years ago. Oh yes, we use data. Our analytics department sends out, 80 reports every morning. 80 reports? Oh, that's right. Everybody's going through 80 reports every day. So what? It's a good gut response. Metrics, there's nothing magic in metrics. You don't find them useful, they're not. Don't waste your time. Don't clutter up the hard drive space in your brain with people looking at it. It's just a waste of time that you do not have. So what kind of metric do you need? Well, if you're an e-commerce company, where the metric of success is money, how much money can we make? And these are the questions that come out of, or this is how an e-commerce company structures their web analytics, by saying, what are the questions that we want to answer? Who came to our site? Were they previous? Did they come in previously, or are they new? Are they high potential visitors, or are they low? How did they get here? How did they find us? Was it something that we did, or did they sort of wander into a search engine? What did they look at when they come to our site? We have all these pages. Websites are sort of endless kind of thing. So what did they look at? Were they successful? It's probably the most important thing. Did they find what they were looking for? Kind of thing. It's not good enough. If you're going to sell something to someone, it's not good enough just to say they came. Did they actually find what they were looking for? So those are the questions for an e-commerce company, and it results in data like this. Oh, the report says current and potential customers who typed in t-shirts in Google arrived on our t-shirts landing page, and 1.5% of them made a purchase. What that means is that, if we want to improve this, let's look at the landing page. Maybe we should buy the keyword t-shirts. So there's several points here. They can say, well, if I want to change this, if this is bad, this is good, or if I want to change this, I want to make a decision that will make my website work better. What is success? If I want to sell more t-shirts, then there are certain things here that give us direction, perhaps, in what they can do. So that's an e-commerce site. Setting goals for an e-commerce site is very simple. It's just the goal of success is money. For a content site, a mission-based site, though, the questions are the same as an e-commerce site. Who came to our site? How did they get here? What did they look at? And were they successful in getting what they wanted? The same questions for a content site as an e-commerce site. So why the questions are the same? These metrics don't answer those questions. That's why these are so what questions. These metrics are mass media metrics for a digital niche channel. These are the wrong metrics. They're used all over. You see them whatever because they are easy. But as you know, communication today is not easy. And it's freaking hard, actually. And it's a big pain, and nobody likes being measured anyway. So that's why you see these metrics over and over again, and that's why you have all kinds of engines churning out data there, because it makes everybody feel that they're doing something. But you know what? They're not. They're just wasting time. You can tell I feel what's important. This is my life. So again, the question, I have to start with the right question. The question is not, how do we grow site traffic? That doesn't do anything for the organization. What it does, the right question to ask an organization is, how can we meet the needs of our audiences? What do you need to do? How does your website or digital channel do that? How does it meet your audience? Not, we just grow traffic to what end? Always have those organizational goals you've been working so hard on over the past week in mind when it comes to the website. Your website is not just a repository of stuff to do. It actually serves a purpose. You spend a lot of money and time on your website and social media, whatever. So do something with it. Make it work for you. Optimize it. Maximize its impact. So what are you looking for? Yeah.
Sometimes it's easier to conduct the formative research and know what the audience will be looking for other communication tools. How do we go about it when it comes to a website? Do we also have to conduct a similar exercise, or do you have specific tools that?
Yes, you have a specific tool that you can use, you start out with going on a fishing expedition and saying, what is the data saying to us now? And that's the advantage of web data, is that it's there, it's sitting there. And just even putting a simple code on the site to get the data, it's there. So it starts out with really looking at that data and whatever it is.
When you want to structure your website for the first time, you have to conduct research,
honestly, in this day and age, I just do it. I conduct, if you're starting out completely new, maybe, start out with the goals of your organization and just get something up and going. Just, I think in this day and age, it's a matter of speed and be willing to go in and change things and change things faster, and knowing that you're going to have to change your website regularly anyway, I think. Get it out there with everyone's best judgment, and then measure. And then change it based on what's happening with the audience, the actual thing. It's sort of a waste of time to do a lot of research. Sure, you may have to do a little bit, but get it up there. Just do it, kind of thing. I mean, the world's moving way too fast. Your audiences are being distracted, are being pulled through different. Just get something up there, but then have the goals firmly in mind when you do that, and have your metrics in place. I think, which I'll go through, in a bit. I think, when I do this for news organizations, as a consultant, we start out with, like a 2-day retreat where we do something similar to here, where we really map that out. Map out the goals, map out the metrics, map those metrics to the goals, kind of thing. And let's decide what that really needs, to happen. So there's a little bit of planning, but the emphasis is on just getting the bare framework together. So you're not just like guessing in the wind, but you got to move fast. Get it up there, but look at the data, have the goals and metrics before you start.
That approach wouldn't work in Iraq.
Yeah, I know.
It's funny because the website has become the single most contentious
I bet, yeah.
Because once people realized it was just run by the guy who set it up himself, and then as soon as it became a focus of international expertise attention, suddenly it's become the most bitterly fought over piece of real estate. Yeah.
And metrics are political too. I mean, because if you've chosen the right metrics, metrics are responsible for defining success. And when you define success is always political. Who's successful, who's not, kind of thing. So I always fight the good fight. I know. I'm in academia. I can do this kind of thing. But I think that the emphasis is just sort of like recognize where the good data is. It's not going to be in asking people what they want. It's going to be in really understanding what they need and making some judgment on that, and then constantly looking at your data to see whether or not you're on track or not, setting those goals into it. So the metrics that we're looking at here are all around this nebulous concept called engagement, which means that not only, we want metrics that not only indicate that they visit, but that they do it regularly. Did they read the content, and did they do it a lot? And the most important of, did they interact with it, and did they do it often? Interacting meaning anything from rating, printing, voting, taking a post, looking at, sharing, whatever, something that indicates that they did something other than get there. Something kind of thing. And we have all of this. It's all just sitting there looking for the right questions for you to ask. Pull that data out. We have all this data. You don't look at all of it. It's way too much. You've got to have the right question in mind before you go and fish that data out. It is there. So if you structure your site, you structure it so that every single thing on your site gives you a data point. You put in an internal search component on your website. You can capture the keywords that people use, so when they come to your site, you will know exactly what they're looking for and whether they found it or not. So the metric is people who typed in, say, Greece, financial statement. They got to the search results page on the site. Did they leave immediately, or did they go successfully? You're looking at that data. Your navigation is what sections of people go. What are the words that are important to your organization that absolutely need to be in your navigation? Things like whenever you ask someone to put in something about themselves. New York Times has get quotes on the company. Guess what? You have then some expression of interest, some indicator of interest of what companies people are interested in for the stock quotes. So every single click point on your site is an opportunity to get information about what your audience needs and whether they got it or not. So when it comes to designing your site, the goals in mind, I think, and really give some thought about each individual part of it. But I know it's a political situation, look on your site, but if you have the metrics behind you, you can, that's ammo. That's ammunition that you can use to make decisions. That's why metrics are really important to understand and to be able to present them to decision makers in a way that's meaningful to them. So let's get down and dirty with these metrics. What are the basic metrics of a website? There's only 3, really. Unique visitors visit a website and they generate page views. So the 3 basic metrics are unique visitors, visits, and page views. There are no issues with them. There is what's called a strong metric versus a weak metric. A strong metric gives a clear indicator. It's a useful tool. A weak metric is conceptually flawed. So what? Nothing. And because we're talking about computers here, they can be technically flawed. The way that it's measured is just plain wrong, I think, or misleading, I think. The worst thing about using weak metrics, mixed signals, bad decisions. So the first weak metric is unique visitors. Let's walk through a little bit of technical stuff on what is unique visitor. When you see the term unique visitor, what are you talking about? When you go to your browser and you type in a website, it sends a signal over to the web server and sends back a page. Okay, that sounds good. But if, remember, it's not actually a person who's sending it in. It's a PC. It's your machine with a cookie that's saying to another machine, give me this page. So that means, because we're talking about a cookie, if you have more than one devices, I don't know, I've got 5. How many have, anybody else have 5 devices? 6, 7, 8, 9? Again, this was not an issue 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever. Huge issue now. I would say, I don't have since ever, but people have at least 2, maybe 3. Every device you have has a cookie counted. Every cookie is counted as a visitor. So one person with 5 devices 5 unique visitors. Conversely, like here at USC, where we have digital labs, where we have students use the computers because they have special software on it, what have you. 14 people using one computer, 1 unique visitor. Yeah.
What if 14 people have separate accounts on the same computer and logging?
If they log in, that's different. The login, yes, you can capture individual people, but most websites, and even if you have logged into websites, people don't log in. I mean, only a fraction of people will log in unless it's a paid site or something like that. So for most of your sites in which you're not charging, you don't have a login, or if you have a login, not that many people use it, you're looking at the situation. And especially like for a lot of news organizations who are targeting young people in schools, unique visitors is particularly a bad metric. This is what we call a technical flaw in this metric. There's nothing we can do about it. That means whenever you look at the number of unique visitors, it's either overcounted or it's undercounted, and you will never, ever know. Ever kind of thing. It's a weak metric. Okay. But I really get the message? Okay, it's good. Page views. Page views is not weak technically, but it's weak conceptually. And that's because if you have an increase in page views, sure, it could mean that they like your content. But they also could mean they can find your way. You've all been to websites where it's click, 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 click. The USC Annenberg site. Horrible. Sorry, anybody here from? No. Okay. Most university sites, most government sites. You know what site is not badly designed? Amazon.com. Guess what their motivation is, though? Money. They have every e-commerce site has a vested interest in making sure that people are not pissed off at their site. And they can measure that kind of thing. When you have a content site, you have no such clear direction. And so you have a very political website where nobody, your audience, is pleasing your internal audiences, but your external audiences are pissed off at you. So you're like, click, 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 click. So a great number of pages could mean that you're really off. Are fewer pages bad? Sure. It could mean that people can't find the one. But guess what? Dynamic content, flash content, those carousels on your homepage that flip kind of thing, not counted as page views. So, and also, if you redesign, which most of you should be doing regularly, kind of thing, you should be looking at a decrease in page views for redesign. Because people are then more efficient, at getting what they want. So, it's ambiguous. Is more page views good, bad? Is fewer pages good, bad? Don't know. Weak metric conceptually. Not technically, but conceptually. So what are we left with? Very good. See? Visits. Visits are technically the number of individual sessions initiated by all the visitors to your site. So you have one person coming twice, one person coming 4 times, another one 2, 1, whatever. You just count them all up. Technically, it's the strongest metric we have. There are flaws in it because no metric is perfect, but metrics is a pretty strong. This is a pretty strong metric both technically and conceptually.
I don't get the difference between let's say this is a shared computer in the university library, and all of us at the table, we all go to one page, but surely we're all visiting one page. Surely that would be seen as one visit because it's all on the same computer.
No, because it depends on the timing of those visits. But say you came to the computer in the library, you visited the site, and you went away. Then you came over, visited the site, that's another visit. And you came over, that's another visit. It will be recognized as one unique visitor, but 3 visits. Okay. So it's just a really simple count. And that's another thing about metrics. If it's too complicated, it's probably not going to be that useful. Useful metrics are pretty simple. They're obvious. They're transparent. Everyone can understand, frankly, what they are. And conceptually, visits are more visits good? Always. It either means more people are visiting your site, or it means the same number of people are visiting, but they're visiting more often. And of course, the best case situation, more people and visiting more often. Always, always good. So visits is like taking your temperature. You could be having a temperature, say 101. You know you're sick, you just don't know why. So this is like taking your temperature kind of thing. It's just sort of like that first sort of cut at whether or not your site is healthy or not. And then conversely, when it comes to visits, are fewer visits bad? Always. Fewer people coming to your site, same people coming less often, or worst case, fewer people visiting less often. Extremely strong metric. You see it going up, good, down, bad. So, but it's just the first sort of cut at it. To really, really use these metrics for decision making, you have to go beyond just counting. So what, your visits went up 20 or 50 or whatever. You've got to get into that next layer of really understanding how you take action on that metric. You see that report and you're thinking, so what? And then you need to drill down and get lower. And that's what we call segment or die kind of thing. Go beyond just sort of looking at the mass number here and really understanding which one of those, what did they do on each of those visits. All that wonderful listing data that we get from Google Analytics and other systems like that, to segment them and really understand that. So the first segment to look at is visits by traffic source. How many of all the visits that came to your site, where did they come from? And that gives you the answer of, do you know what your audience is looking for when they come to your site? Most people start when they, start looking at what they should improve their website. They say, oh, let's just put on more content kind of thing. Let's look at what people are looking at. No, look at where people are coming from. Because, again, because of the wonderful internet and all the things that it is, they could be coming through search, coming through referring sites, directly, or through campaigns, email campaigns and things like that. Directly means they know you. They know your URL. They came from a campaign that you did. They know you. That gives you information that these are people who actually know you. Referring sites. A referring site is any third-party site that's not owned by you. So Facebook and Twitter now on this, but what other sites are linked to you? And then, of course, you all know that search. So if you look at your total number of visits and say how many came from search, how many from referring, how many from direct, campaigns, this is actionable information. One of the first actions is, do you have a balanced set of traffic? This is balanced. These are some general numbers. 50% search traffic. Maybe, and the rest sort of divide them up among the other search traffic. But search is extremely important now. In fact, that's how most people are finding information. But you can be too reliant on search, which means that you're really sort of not doing what you should be doing in marketing, because if you have fewer people not coming directly to you, I mean, people are not, you're not doing your brand, presenting your brand correctly, you're not doing any campaigns, you're losing out on an opportunity there kind of thing. So you have to look at the percentages and saying, are you getting a balanced set of traffic from all the possible sources? So you're going to really maximize the number of people coming to your site. They're going to be coming from various different sources, and you can then use those as levers to really track what should you be doing in referral traffic and cultivating bloggers, what should you be doing in marketing, and what should you be doing with email and other things. Yeah.
What do you think
referral traffic? Referral traffic is like if a blogger links to you or the New York Times links to you, whatever. That means that someone came to the New York Times first and then came to your site. And so you know that if they came from the New York Times, then there are certain types of person coming through that. And if you get a lot of traffic from the New York Times, then you might want to then consider a partnership with them. So depending on who or what is sending traffic to you, I think, from other sites, that can give you indicators on what you should do with that information. But it's a question about strategy. What other sites, what other organizations should you be working with based on who you're already getting. Search is extremely useful because you can track what keywords they use to get to your site. So, for example, for Fox Sports, if you need to look at two things: the branded keywords, the keywords that you are getting out there, and the unbranded keywords. In other words, people are coming to your site for things this is a chance to get new audiences. If you have the content here, they don't know your brand yet, they're coming in through unbranded keywords. And these are the people who know you, these are the people who don't. Segmenting, understanding of all the visits that came through search, what words they use, which words they didn't. Segment, visits with only one page view. When people came and they saw your site, did they puke? I came, I saw, I puked. Avinash Kaushik, if you really want to get into web analytics, Avinash Kaushik is like the guru among all gurus. He's at Google, and he's written a number of books, and he's just really puts everything in useful information whatever. So if you really want to get into this, then follow Avinash Kaushik and everything that he does. But it's very basic, just simple, bounce rate. Of all the visits that came to your site, how many immediately left? It's like, it's no brainer. It's like, they came for some reason, they came through some reason kind of thing, why didn't they stay? Now for some news sites, maybe that's okay, depending on how the page is designed. If they want to have breaking news and whatever, then that might be okay. But for most of your sites, I imagine that's not a good thing. Kind of thing. And in news sites that I've looked at, we're looking at bounce rates of 50, 60, 70%. You know it's bad, right? I mean, that is not good. So what's behind that? And that's when the other actionable information that you get is then they came in, they landed on the home page, and they bounced. So if you have that metric, you can say, all right, first of all, where did they come from? And you can say, what's about it that where it's coming from? It gives us a clue on where they're bouncing. And then when they hit the page, let's fix this page. This home page of the Los Angeles Times has a 70% bounce rate. Then that means this is actionable. Let's try to fix that. And then 70% becomes the starting point, and then you take actions and change it or put different content or whatever, and then see whether or not your actions actually result in a lower bounce rate. That's an actionable metric. Sort of like how many visits came to the site, say directly, landed on the home page, and then bounced. And if that number isn't good for you, if that's not the number you want, then do something about it and see what.
What does it tell? If they bounce back.
That means that they didn't like what they saw when they got there.
So, which means I have to change that.
Yeah. Change the content, change the navigation, do some more marketing. If you have an email newsletter and the person came in through a link and they thought they were looking, for questions about a program, and your page doesn't have any words about that program, they left. They don't have time for this stuff. They're going to go on. They're going to move on, kind of thing. So that's why it's important to look at the traffic source as well as the page where they landed. Put those two together and say, let's try something. You're not going to know for sure, but it gives you, again, indicators of something to try. And if you have the metric set, oh my gosh, we're at 70% now, kind of thing, then that means if you decrease it by 2 points, 68, try it, kind of thing. Or 5 or whatever kind of thing. If you see over time that bounce rate go down, and you're actively taking action, then that is success. So success is not seen in these big metrics. They're seen in these small little things, and it's all these small successes that lead up to the bigger success as a site. Another segment. Visits by visitor location. You can get the IP address by country, by city, by county, and so you get measures like this. Is this site successful? This site gets 20% of its visits from Alhambra, say Alhambra here in Los Angeles, and 80% from the city of Los Angeles. Is this site successful?
By the number, yes.
But
They
Yeah.
contain what we like.
So what?
Find.
So what?
So what? That's good. Good reaction. The other comment that gets you named my class is it depends. So what?
Who's asking?
Exactly. Who's asking? It depends.
And for what?
And for what? Yes. So you can just say it over and over to my class and get a name. So what? It depends. So what? It depends. So what? It depends. If you are our core little Alhambra source, 20% Alhambra, Just doing it. The purpose of the Alhambra source is to engage people in Alhambra. Ouch. If you're the Los Angeles Times, okay, not bad. Actually, or it could be bad because maybe Los Angeles Times is targeting the West Side instead. So it depends. Depends who you are. Depends what programs you're doing, kind of thing. If the Los Angeles Times is running a big initiative in reaching people in Alhambra, it's going to be pretty damn good. But if it's not, it's like, kind of thing. Maybe it should. If they're getting 20%, just by doing the same old, maybe there's an opportunity that they should exploit. So metrics don't necessarily always indicate the bad. They can also indicate opportunities that you didn't know that you had that you can then sort of push forward on. But you've got to know who you are as an organization and what you want to accomplish. So
it's like shooting in the dark if you don't know what made them go away immediately. Just trying out something.
yeah.
So that's going to be very expensive, right?
No. I mean, that's the great thing about the web. I mean, you know, when in the day of the newspaper, yes, it took literally millions of dollars to make a change in a newspaper. On the web, seconds. Okay, maybe not seconds, minutes. Kind of thing. But I mean, that's the beauty of being able to react to this data, is that you can try out a number of things, and there are a number of mechanisms within these analytics programs that help you test it. You know, it's called A/B testing. Let's test out the blue one versus the red one and see which one gets the most, the better results. So, but again, of all the things you could do to improve your site, you've got to really zero in on the ones that you want. There are lots of things you can do. What becomes expensive if you do a lot of stuff and you don't know why you're doing it. But if you have a pretty set goal, then the metrics give you some pretty discrete, tactics to say, let's try this, let's try that, try this. Or at least it helps you prioritize what actions you should take. Really important segment, new versus returning. Of all the visits coming, how many are brand new to your site and how many are returning? Because if this green line is sort of all visits kind of thing, key question, when you have a spike in visits, which is good, did that spike come from new people sort of coming in just because, or was it from returning? And more importantly, if you're really trying to build a long-term audience, is that returning number staying level, or is that going up too? So for this news organization, it's like, returning sort of sucks. Boring, kind of thing. They're not reacting to whatever. So you have a new site, the proportion between new and returning is going to be different than if you have an established site. Again, it depends. Every organization, and based on whatever you're doing, has to determine what are the numbers you're looking for in new versus returning. So this is really, really important to understand this so that you can, again, take action, market, and not just digital channels kind of thing, but events and things like that. What do you need to do? If you're trying to get new visitors, what is it that you need to do? What kind of new visitors that you want? Returning? The analytic systems based on the cookie. There's all these great stuff that you can get in analytic systems just sort of automatically being collected. You just have to go in and get that data. This is a very simple report that you can do with 2 clicks.
What is the best analytic system to use? Is it Google Analytics?
The best analytic system is one that you actually use. Google Analytics is free. Adobe Omniture costs a lot of money. There are a lot of news organizations that buy Adobe Omniture and don't use it at all. And there are organizations who use Google Analytics and they're doing wonderful things with it, and it's all for free. So it's neat. I get really cranky when it comes to this metric stuff, as you can tell. If you're going to make decisions based on gut and judgment, sometimes that's appropriate. Don't waste your time with the metrics. Just go with your gut. It's okay. But know what you're doing. Don't kid yourself by saying, oh, well, I've got the data. If you're not using that data, it's okay to say, you know what, we made this decision based on what we think. Because it's a brand new audience and it's a brand new effort. We really don't know what's going to happen, but if you know that you're making it based on data, you're going to proceed a little bit more cautiously than if you think you have good data. If you think you have good data and it's bad data, probably going to lead you down. You're going to go forward more with more gusto than probably you should. But just be conscious of how you make decisions and whether or not you're really using the data, or whether or not it's a kind of decision that probably shouldn't depend on data. Know what your data can do and can't do, because again, it cannot do. Really important for content science. What content works? For WNYC, which is an NPR station, they want to invest, say, a lot in their online-only programs. But where are people going? Where should they invest? Should they get more in radio programs, more live stream, more online? What is their affiliation with NPR getting them? It could be, for a lot of public radio stations, that's one thing that we're going to be looking at here at Annenberg is, if you have a public radio station, KPCC, WNYC, WVR, is everyone going to the content that the local stations are producing, or are they just going to the national NPR content? It's like, why, kind of thing. So it's like your content partners, let's say you do a content agreement, is it worth it? Is it worth the money that you're paying for? Is it worth the effort that you're putting into the partnership? Look at your traffic and see. What is your audience really responding to? Your content? Someone else's content? Or what have you? Really? What topics? You could be investing a lot in one topic and everybody is not even going to it at all. They're going to another topic. Okay? So maybe you should dump that effort and go into the topic that people are really wanting to get. Okay, so really looking at the type of content, and that involves setting up a content taxonomy to really understand what you have and what you don't have. Day of week. These segments just go on and on. This is a news site, and this is a news site that is traditional media information that says that they are a 24/7 news site. They are the source of information 24/7 for the target audience. But this is their website. They have, say, 25,000 visits during the week, and on Saturdays and Sundays they dump down to 12,000. Half. Is this the sign of a 24/7 news site? Well, so it's like ask, it's like, well, did you know this? Oh yeah, we know this. It's like, well, we don't have news staff on the weekends. Is that good? Is that bad? Well, you said you wanted to be 24/7. So get some news staff on the weekend. If your goal, this is where goals come in. Your goal is to become a 24/7 news source. Make sure you're tracking the website. Hire staff. If that's your goal, so then let your web traffic reflect that. If their goal was our website is just a supplement to our traditional radio station, but okay, this is okay, it's fine, nothing to fix. So be careful what you say your goals are, because you know what, you really should do it. Kind of thing. You say your goal is this, and you don't have the goods, it's going to show up in your data, guaranteed. Probably the most important segment of 2013 and going forward. Who is coming in through mobile, and what in the world are you doing about it? And if I had my way, I would make all of your sites mobile first. Because you don't need data to make the decision that the majority of visits going forward is just going to keep up and going on through mobile devices. And not necessarily iPads and tablets, but through, low-end smartphones and text. So if you're not already mobile first, try to get there really, 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 really fast. What it means is that you have what's called responsive design. The navigation and stuff changes according to the device that the user has. So this is KPCC. Without them, it is programmed for responsive design. This is what you see on the web. This is what you see on a smartphone. And so it's a lot simpler. And it doesn't look as pretty as, your usual overloaded sort of news site anyway. But so what? It's useful to the users, especially on mobile. The data backs that up. So you got to get out of the sort of design bubble that so many organizations are in. Oh, it's what we like, it's so pretty, and it's our logo. You know, what really kills me is when the logo is like this big, you're kind of thinking. Your audience does not care about the logo, it cares about the content and can get there easily. You can see that there's a decision that needs to be made here. What's going to be the top story? And the second one, because guess what? Not a whole lot of people necessarily going to scroll. So a decision needs to be made on, and this is where politics totally comes in, right? All right, people are going to go on mobile, so what is going to be here? What's going to be here? What's going to be here? Whatever. It really boils down decision making to the most important things in your organization. What is the most important thing that you want people to see when they see your content on a mobile device? Really forces your decision, your organization, to make some very tough decisions. And you're going to piss someone off in your organization, but someone's not going to be happy with the fact that they weren't here. But again, use the data as your ammunition to prove your point, or on your goals to say, we want to do this, so therefore we're going to feature that on our mobile site. So going forward, you absolutely need to look at how many users are coming in through mobile, what they're looking for, what different traffic sources they're coming from. Everything's different. It's two different analysis processes. What's happening with your site, what's happening through mobile. And not just phones, but tablets versus phones and things like that. And another complication of mobile, there's the mobile web, which is what this is, and then there's your apps. So that's another set of metrics altogether if you have an app. If your resources are limited, screw the app. Because apps are totally device specific. iPhone, Android, and what have you kind of thing. A mobile web, everybody can get to it. So if your funds are limited, just go with the mobile web and screw the app. Because apps have other issues kind of thing. Apps are really only, again, it depends. Apps are good for people who are going to come over and over again, members and things like that. Because an app streamlines functionality for people who already know you and know what they're going to get. So apps are, they're not usually for the big, if you're really trying to bring more people, and all kinds of different people, whatever, just stick with really optimizing the mobile web. And, because remember, apps need to be maintained. And it's not just one app. You've got to do iPhone, you've got to do Android, you've got to do Windows. It always pisses me off. You can tell a lot of it's just off, yes. But I have an Android. And contrary to popular belief, not everybody has an iPhone. And, I cannot believe all those businesses who just have an iPhone. They're, not everybody has an iPhone. I mean, it's a little skewed here on campus because, I forget what the numbers are, but most of the students, like in my last class, like everyone had a Mac except for one student who's really practical and says, because Mac costs too much. So college campuses, very skewed, but if you are a business or you really have to understand your audience, but it doesn't matter. If you really try to grow audiences, don't limit yourselves, with an app. Don't spend tons of money on an app if you haven't really fixed your So that's one of my soapboxes. End of soapbox. Stop pounding this into you. And then finally, visits to a social media channel. So everything I told you about the web, forget. Because when it comes to social media, it's completely different. Completely different. Wholly new set of metrics. So just, like I said about the web, just shut it off. Time for something new, social media. But the issues are the same. Go beyond the surface metrics, the ones that are easy to get, and really look at the ones that matter. Start with your mission, not with just saying we got to have a Facebook page, we got to go get followers, we got to go, we got to get everybody tweeting, or worse yet, let's have our intern tweet. It's sort of like, are you going to use social media for your organization or not? Is it important or not? And if it's not important, then why are you doing it?
Do you have a sense of how normal it is to get some interns or other people to do the tweet for the organization?
It's unfortunately too normal. Yeah, and it's the biggest mistake that organizations can have, because I love our students, but they're not your employees, and they don't have, they don't necessarily know your goals or can internalize them. They're not necessarily the best spokespeople for your organization, kind of thing. And social media is growing and growing and growing, influence and whatever. So why, again, if it's worth it to do social media, if you've gone through the goal setting process and decided, yes, we need to be on this or that or whatever, then devote resources to it, measure to see if it's working for you, and put someone on it that is going to make it work. Don't just have it just to have it.
Have there been any cases where companies have gotten into trouble for what somebody in the organization tweeted on behalf of the vice president or someone who had delegated that task?
Yeah, there have. None come to mind because people are a little bit more cautious about that now. But yes, I can probably dig up some if you really want to know. If you need some ammo, I can bring that up to you. No problem. Yes, there have been some really unfortunate ones.
I've got as a horrible example in Iraq. They decided they wanted a Facebook page because they wanted to reach the youth.
Yes.
Yeah. So they set up the personal Facebook. So the Election Commission of Iraq was born on 1st of January 1990. And the person who was allocated to look after the social media actually didn't own a computer. A very sweet guy, but he really didn't know what he was doing. He was very concerned that the right kind of people would be friends. So he basically, he was from a very conservative family, and he felt it was not good that women who were not wearing hijab should have their photos online. So basically, he every night he would take the list of people who wanted to be a friend, and he would read out the names. And so we actually got only Shia men were allowed to be friends with the Election Commission. And I was trying to explain in a subtle, compassionate way that this really was reflecting a very, very bad image of the Election Commission.
Yes.
You're only allowing the Shia males.
Close to.
This poor guy was spending hours going through the list as well. And then,
well, and then that goes with not having, once you understand goals. If the goals have been clearly in everybody's mind, and we wanted to have a diverse group, it's important, it's essential, then I would hope that I would have gotten this clue to ask someone before we did that. So, goals. I mean, I've been hearing that all week, what have you, but it's even more important with this metric stuff because this metric stuff is a pain. It takes time, it takes investment, whatever. So, it's worth it to really take the time to really go through the painful process of trying to get everybody to agree on the same goal, so that things like that, if you don't have these renegades going off and doing stuff like that, but I assume you've recovered from that, right?
Well, we then went through an equally painful process of turning the personal Facebook page into an institution. But that had to go through the Board of Commissioners, and I was dragged in to give a presentation as to why, having the Election Commission selecting its friends as opposed to people being free to like or not, was why that political decision has to be made. And it's an ongoing battle.
Yeah, I mean, so as you know, whenever you have to do fixing, it takes a lot more resources and a lot harder to do than just doing it right to begin with. So, I said I wasn't going to get on any more soapboxes, but I just got on a lot of soapboxes and metrics, I guess. So, what is it that you're looking for from social media metrics? One, conversation. Social means talk and listen and discuss. This comes from the great author Tasha. So you need to measure that. Versus social media is to converse. So measure conversation. Amplification. Again, one of the great features of social media is that you're not just reaching one person, you can reach their followers as well. So is your message actually being amplified? And Ron will have show you some great graphs and showing how that it's actually worked. And how the message is made out there.
So how do you measure conversation?
That's about a 3-hour lecture. We're all going to a little bit of kind of thing, but each one of these things, I guarantee you, it's not only fairly complex, it's also evolving, and nobody really knows. Social media metrics are the biggest area of, I don't know. Now, you heard a little bit from Francois Barr before about Twitter metrics kind of thing. That was just like,
Diet counts. Diet.
well, yeah, I mean, that's why I was just starting to get a handle on web metrics, and then social media came out. I'm like, and now mobile's come out. It's like, so I'm feeling a little loosey-goosey here, kind of thing. But that's what I like about metrics, because no one's an expert, so therefore you can try a lot of things and say, oh gosh, it doesn't work. I mean, it's very, very relaxing to know that there's not like this one authority thing out there, kind of thing. It's evolving, and that makes it sort of, very, very, very sort of fun to deal with, because nobody has egos in this, because they're just trying to sort of really figure out what's going on there as the media world changes. Applause, Beck was talking about, sentiment analysis. Did they actually like what's going on, kind of thing? Or did they hate you? Or, so how do you measure that kind of thing? But at least you can measure what exactly does your audience like, the applause factor. When it comes to Facebook specifically, and this is another thing about social media metrics, every single platform has different set of metrics. So you can't just say, oh, we're going to use this to measure social media. No, you've got to say, this is Facebook, this is Twitter, this is for Pinterest, this is for Instagram, whatever platform you're using, you've got to really look at. This is why it's such a mess. They all have different kind of metrics. They all work differently. That's the power of social media. So with Facebook, you've got to get the invites, you've got to get the likes, because that's how you get into somebody's newsfeed, right? So yes, that's just the beginning kind of thing. But what you're really looking at is that interaction thing. Did they like it? Did they view? Did they post? Did they answer? All the things that Facebook does, and that's me. What Facebook does and offers changes almost every week. So that means you've got to keep an eye on all those metrics. If your Facebook is something that's important to you. What it means is that, the typical thing is like, we have this many likes. So this is an organization, a news organization, that said, our goal is to get as many likes as possible. And so they did raffles and marketing campaigns, whatever. It's like, sure enough, they got the number of likes going from 15,000 to 18,000. Like, success? Well, it's just the number of likes. If you really look at the number of engaged users, how many people like it, how many interact with it, the number is like 415. If you look at the median number of engaged users, it's a mere fraction of the likes. Because you know how Facebook works. Streams, you have no guarantee that you're going to be seen any one time. So the next step for this organization is to look at them and look at the peaks. What worked? Do more of it. Keep your eye on the engaged users, what's engaging people, and do more of it. And what's bombing? What did you not do? Were you not there? Kind of thing, I'm here. But if you're really looking at what actually people are interacting with, instead of just whether or not you got in the newsfeed, that's actionable information, I think. And maybe this is just a fluke, I think. But at least you have that number and you can look at it. And if you aren't already in Facebook Insights, which is in the admin section of your pages, then just start going in there and looking at all the data in there and downloading it and what have you. It's really, really rich information. It's too much information, but again, know what you're looking for. Twitter. Did you know Twitter followers, they're totally not the same as Facebook likes. This is a really good illustration of how you can look at each social media channel as differently. Because a Twitter follower is not the same as someone saying they like me on Facebook. A follower may be following from people. There's a couple people that are saying that if someone follows more than X number of people, it's just sort of noise. They've never actually seen you, kind of thing. If someone's following 20,000 people, what are your chances of actually getting there? And also in Twitter, it's much more dynamic than Facebook. There are lots of people who are following you who never go on Twitter, or who rarely go on Twitter. So you really have to get away totally from the whole follower thing. And again, go back to what's really working or not working. If you're depending on your goals, we're trying to build audience using that. And when it comes to tweets,
Excuse me.
yeah.
How do you know that it's the words? Because it's something which is instant and
Yeah.
which tends to lead you to do something else relevant.
Right. Well, and that's where, thank you for the reading. But to really look then at the content of what you're tweeting. If you really want to understand what works in your tweets, you've got to be conscious of the little hooks that you're putting in each of your tweets. So tweeting is almost spontaneous if you want to use it for impact. You should have a call to action. Go here, look at this, tell me. You should have a link and you can track for Bitly, whether or not someone clicked on a link that you had in your tweet, kind of thing. A hashtag, you cannot measure anything about a tweet once you put that hashtag in it and encourage you to do a hashtag. And then topical specific handles. If you have an organizational site like Barack Obama doesn't actually tweet, but when he does, at the very end he has a -VO. And when Michelle tweets, she puts -MO. And you can see this at General Motors too. For the @General Motors account, Twitter account, they have like 5 people who tweet under the General Motors account, and their pictures are all on their profile page. And they have initials, and so you can tell it's a real person. So Twitter is all about people. Social media is about people, not organizations. So if you have an organizational site, make sure that you're actually, people know there's a real person there, and a specific person, as opposed to just organization. And if you use those little handles, the -MO or whatever, then you know, frankly, who's a better tweeter than someone else, kind of thing. You know who works and who doesn't. So maybe that's someone you should put on more time. Maybe your intern is working, kind of thing. In which case, you can measure that. Maybe your intern is actually cultivating an audience, whatever. But you don't know that.
Has there been any research to see whether getting, like a corporation getting a celebrity to be sponsored as their Twitter agent, would that create influence? Would that create more sales? Because I know the fact in Kuwait, some corporations are doing that on a year basis or 6 months basis, and they've generated some good sales, some good reviews. But I don't know what's the behind the scene and the actual numbers and the effect on that. And has it been applied in the U.S. or in Europe or not?
Yeah, there's a whole effort around trying to, how can you attribute a sale to what channel? And I'm not, there's studies coming out all the time, I think, but I'm not aware of any one particular one that says, yeah, I really see that it's happening. I mean, I think it really differs. There's so many factors that are in play there, right? The organization, the product, the celebrity, and then what happens when that celebrity bombs, kind of thing. And there's, I think what's so, frustrating sometimes about social media is that there is really no recipe that can say this works and this works, kind of thing. And it's just constantly, evolving. And I think that's what most people have admitted to is like, no one is saying, yes, this is the way, kind of thing. But the studies are coming out and saying, this worked for this person during this time period of these circumstances. And draw from that what you might, kind of thing. So, I could probably do some studies where I'm just not sure that they necessarily use information to you. But if you have I think that's where you need to come up with your strategy first and say, okay, is there someone else who's like this, and see if the study then has information that is roughly parallel to what you're doing. That's what I suggest. As opposed to getting overwhelmed by all the things that are out there, first decide what you want to do and what you're thinking about doing, and then seeing if anybody else has done it successfully or bombed. I mean, I think it'd be really great to understand, if someone's trying something similar and they bomb, and understand the factors that why they bomb.
Okay, so just a follow-up. I mean, what I'm trying to say is, the person that's tweeting, should you be selling the person's name or the company's name? What's driving the business? Especially when that person's been on board as the Twitter agent, if it's one person for a long time. Is his name as a brand value worth more being the person for GM or what's so on any company? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes, and that has come up in the news where someone has left an organization and they took their handle with them.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's the thing about social media. It's always about the person. It's not about the organization. So another reason why you need to have that organizational handle for Twitter, but make sure your strategy is set up so that, if a person leaves kind of thing, and you probably are going to take a hit, but no, you'll recognize it kind of thing, and don't have that. I would definitely have that person have their own handle, right, and have the organizational handle kind of thing, because social media is about people. You know, it's not about organizations, it's about people connecting with people. Kind of thing. So, accept it, whatever, and no business slave. So, divide your strategy around what social media, how the social media world works, as opposed to, sort of the typical employer-employee standard. There have been there was this one ridiculous court case in which a journalist was sued by his company, and it got to the courts, and the court said, and the organization said, oh, well, our Twitter will handle, each one of our followers under this guy was for $2.50. It's like, that was just a number just pulled out of the air kind of thing. You can't put a monetary value on the value of follower under there.
Well, technically you can if you bought the followers.
There's no, it was just sort of, I don't know, it was just sort of like, that's a number, just like, that's just a so what. Where'd you get that from? What is it? That's totally something that would only come up in an attorney coming up with something to try to win a case.
We've had a couple of presentations that have touched upon Twitter and issues and value added, but so far no one has convinced me of the value add.
Good.
But something I've overheard? I'm not a Twitter user myself. I see it as noise, and I could be just completely mistaken about it, but I have not yet understood what the fuss is about. Honestly, it's social media.
You have my
people put all social media in one box, but I know a lot of people personally get a lot out of Facebook. I'm also not on Facebook. I'm probably very strange, and maybe I will be one day. But Facebook, I can see the value in terms of staying in touch. A lot of people live abroad from their friends and family, so that helps. But Twitter, what is it?
That's why it goes back to. That's why it goes back to.
Who gets value out of this?
That's what I mean. That's why you don't start here. That's why you don't say, oh, let's go have a Twitter account.
Yeah.
You start here with what is your business goal? What is your organizational goal? And where does Twitter fit into that?
Yeah.
If it has no place, then it's okay.
Yeah. But
it's better to not be on Twitter than to do it badly.
But
that's a general rule for anything kind of thing. It's better, if you're going to do something, do it well.
Can you tell me of a case where can you tell me of a case where Twitter makes a difference?
In a news organization, Twitter is often used as a broadcast device to get more people to come to the site. So for most news organizations, the purpose is to send more traffic to the website. And so for that reason, the reporters are asked to tweet their stories and to develop audiences, as an employee of the LA Times or whatever, so that more people go to the website. Okay. So that's a very specific purpose, and that's a different purpose than conversation. Lady Gaga, right? Lady Gaga's purpose is to build as many people who buy into the Lady Gaga thing, so they buy her concert tickets and her music and things like that. Lady Gaga is a pop star, and so volume for her does mean something.
And it's also like Justin Bieber does.
Justin Bieber.
Created possibly Justin Bieber.
But for low-income communities that I've worked with news organizations, there's no place for Twitter in that. One, these news organizations are bootstrapped. They have very little money, they have very little time, very little staff. Their time is better spent on Facebook than on Twitter. And because Twitter takes time. Twitter takes a hell of a lot of time. And if you are a four-person organization, you don't have time with Twitter. And it's okay as long as your audience is there. It's like, really start with your audience. Who's your target audience? Who do you want? Who do you need? So, but that's where you can't let your personal things interfere with what your organizations do. That's why you need to really understand your organizational goals, and maybe for just like the tween organizations that I work with, maybe there's something for Twitter. But if you don't, that's a problem. Those are the tactics, are the goals. And if you're not going to do Twitter, do it for a reason. We are not on Twitter because our audience is there, and our staff priorities are someplace else. Okay. Just know what you're doing.
I have the same issue like my colleague raised just now. I work for a non-political organization, and unfortunately, I think according to social media, not looking at the business model,
Yeah.
but because of media tactics, because the World Bank has done it, and Annenberg has done it, so we need to do it as well.
Right.
And I'm struggling to understand if my colleague tells me you have 3,000 or 30,000 followers on Facebook, so what does it mean to ADD? Okay? So what, you know? So I have a question maybe.
Should I get t-shirts? So what?
We at the moment we tweet all our news releases. I'm not sure whether that's the best way to do it, whether it's reaching out to all journalists, but I just throw this out. Does anyone else do the same, you know? But I'm still grappling myself to understand what it means for an institution like ours. We're not a consumer brand. You know, maybe it's easy to sell if you're a Coke or you work for Nestle, but I work for a development agency, right?
Yeah.
So am I reaching the target audience? Do policymakers really tweet and retweet? So, you know, so...
Yeah.
So
again, start out and without talking about any need at all, just get agreement on these business goals, partner goals. You know, media neutral, channel neutral. And when it becomes a goal, we're talking about target audiences and geographies and things like that. All that should be spelled out in that. And once you have that, then frankly it becomes pretty damn clear what channel you use. You know, for some people, I'm going to use a website. You know, and in fact, there's a lot of community organizations that I'm advising don't even have a website, just put everything on Facebook. That's for your audiences. And it's okay, you know, so they'll have a shell website just to have a meeting organization website. But when it comes to saying where are we going to engage our audience, if you're truly audience first, in many communities, that audience is on Facebook. That's where the majority of your resources should go. It's where your audience is. Either your target audience or your current audience. It's you know, we have so many choices now, and you know, if you don't want to go to a cocktail party and brag, then you know, if you really want impact, you've got to really zero in on you, and know why you're doing it so you feel comfortable with it. So then when someone says, "What? You're not on Twitter?" It's like, yeah, that's right, we're not. Bring it on. So, and we're happy with that. So, metrics, like you can see, are political. You know, there are people going to be aghast at that, but again, that's just cocktail party. Yeah.
Hi, I just wanted to kind of piggyback on what Liz was saying. I couldn't agree with you more. And being in communication and development organization, there is this pressure to have some kind of social media platform in everything that we do. And it's really difficult when there's this overhype of social media and what it can do to tell your manager that for our purpose, this is really not where we want to go. And even in a place like the World Bank, I've seen some of the social media campaigns that people have done, and the metrics that they talk about are the so what metrics.
Right.
But because managers or people who are hiring these people don't really have a good understanding of what social media is for and what it's not for, a lot of these campaigns are hailed as successful campaign when all they talk about is, oh, we have this many likes, this, you know, Twitter was retweeted this many times, and I'm sitting here thinking, why does this matter? But that's where the direction is going. So when you're in a situation where you are sort of being forced to learn or forced to come up with a social media platform, what can you say?
And I actually have advised a few of my students who I sent out to the world, and they're like, "Why are you using unique visitors?" And this is what I tell them. I tell them, give them the number that they want, but then explain how this one is better. You know, because I mean, that's what I tell you, because, this is academia, idealistic, this is the right way to do it kind of thing. And this, it's changing, it's evolving, it's going to take a long time. It's going to take 20 years, actually, or more, to get that